Hey everyone, this is James from TDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today we are going to be doing a comparison Inbetweenisode and really comparing what traditional storage does to a tea. I'm going to be featuring two teas that I've already talked about on Inbetweenisodes, both of them from 2009. So really, in all honesty, the best comparison for this is if you can find the same tea, one stored with kind of the Hong Kong traditional storage and another stored perhaps more naturally. I don't have that because I don't have these exact same teas, so we're going to be doing an imperfect comparison, as most are, but doing our best. And I think you'll find that the difference of these is not subtle, and I think you can attribute most of that to the storage. So the two teas we're going to be talking about today are the 2009 Yeon Raw Cluster. So this is an example of a traditionally stored tea. I highly recommend Yeon tea for anyone that's looking to explore traditionally stored pu'erh. Really happy they exist because they're definitely the easiest option to kind of get this sort of tea. And so the raw clusters, it's nothing crazy. It's just kind of a nice, solid drinker. And so I don't actually own a ton of different teas from 2009, so I pulled out the 2009 Da Shui Shan. So the raw clusters was featured on episode number 444. This Yongda Da Shui Shan has been featured twice, and in between episode number 18 as well as 217. It's from a Pu'erh vendor that no longer exists, Fine Pu'erh, who is based in Malaysia. So it was stored in Malaysia for something like 5 years, at which point I bought it in kind of 2014, 2015. So it's been stored by myself for over a decade here in Seattle. So a little more dryly than Malaysia. And you're going to really see how the difference between these two sorts of storage happen. And a lot of that for traditional storage is methodology. It's traditional storage. If you store the tea dryly and naturally in Hong Kong, you're going to get a very, very different result than the actual traditional storage that we're having here, done by the professionals over at Yeon Tea, where the first years are really important in kind of like the process and the biological transformation that it undergoes. If you're curious about learning more about traditional storage, I highly recommend Marshall N's blog. He's written a lot about it. I'm a big fan of these teas. It's no real secret. But yeah, let's get on to the tea and let's see how these two compare. Okay, so here we go. We got the Yeon traditionally stored tea here on my right and the 2009 tea, Northern tea, Yongda Da Shui Shan from Fine Pu'erh on my left. So I wanted to do this with two raw teas just to show you the difference as opposed to a ripe and a traditionally stored tea. So yeah, let's go, because I think visually you'll be able to tell quite a big difference here. I did give these teas 2 rinses. The main reason is to just get into kind of like the main core part of the session rather than do a steep where the flavor is a little lighter. So that's just the main reason. So here we go, the Yongda Da Shui Shan. So, sorry, this is the Yeon chunks, clearly. So you can see the color here. And yeah, that steep was fairly short, using the exact same parameters here too. This is one of those comparisons that's good to show kind of like newer drinkers and whatnot, because it's such an obvious comparison. This is probably going to be kind of a dull comparison if you actually tried a lot of traditionally stored teas, because it's like, it's pretty obvious that there's a big difference there. And so here we have a 16-year-old raw here, also from 2009. See, the color is totally different. So we'll take a smell as well. Unfortunately, smell is something that I cannot show you, but there's going to be a distinct difference in the aroma too. It's still like florals and lots of green notes coming off of this Linchong tea, whereas this one, heavy beetroot, wood. Yeah, you can tell these are just very different animals. If you're to taste these blind, you would definitely guess that this tea is older. But the fact of the matter is, you could have like a 7 or 8 year old traditionally stored tea, and it could already be brewing a color that's quite dark. So yeah, let's start with the younger tea here. And this is one that will definitely kind of screw up your palate, just going back and forth. It will probably exaggerate the differences between the two, make this one seem almost like a ripe in terms of smoothness, and this one to feel a little sharper and a little rougher than it actually is. So we'll probably just do 2 steeps like this, just to kind of show you guys. Cheers. Green, lots of texture. Brown sugars, florals. Not a bad tea. Yeah, decent body, whatnot. This tea doesn't exactly pass my speed test necessarily. I just don't drink Linchong teas all that much, but when I do, it's sometimes something like this. Yeah, still definitely kind of has that sharpness that you'd expect from raw pu'erh. Very distinctly a raw pu'erh. Kind of can get a little sour, a little astringent as well. So yeah, I'm not going to rinse out my cups. We're just going to be lazy here. So yeah, much darker color here. Red, black. Cheers. And it tastes very much like it smells and looks. It's just smooth, woody, kind of like this beet, like aroma that people have made the comparison to as far as traditionally Yuan's tea. It's very thick. This to me is just like a comfort brew. This one is more of a challenge. This one is definitely more complex, but this one on the other hand is much easier to drink. And that really is the value of traditionally stored tea, getting these teas to just be nice, good, warm drinkers. Yeah, and I've never hidden my my enjoyment from these sorts of teas. For me, at least, they represent a pretty interesting type of tea and definitely something that's a bit different from ripe. So I'd strongly recommend people that have not tried traditionally stored tea to check them out, and Yuan is the best place to check them out. In fact, I'd say this is probably a pretty reasonable reference tea to just get some repetitions in with traditionally stored tea. So again, look how dark that is. I think a lot of people would see this color and be like, oh, that's a ripe. Nope, but no, this is just a 16-year-old raw that's been stored traditionally. And now we will go back over here. So when I drink these teas for the rest of the day, I'm definitely not going to be drinking them like this. I don't think this is a great way to appreciate the tea, specifically this tea. I'll probably just start drinking this tea on its own for a bunch of steeps in succession, and then kind of move over to this as the day goes along. Just because the contrast of this is kind of, it's a little jarring, you know? It smells very nice. This one also smells nice, but in a completely different way. I suspect more people, the Yongda is definitely going to be a more familiar profile for people. Yeah, again, a very smooth, consistent profile here. Not a lot of change between this steep and the last. Yeah, pretty easygoing tea for sure. Yeah, I'd be curious to compare this. Perhaps a more interesting comparison would be comparing that versus a similarly aged, traditionally stored ripe, because there are definitely some key differences. Initially, I kind of dismissed traditionally stored ripe as something I wasn't too interested in, because what's the point? Traditional storage is really used for mellowing out, but it does actually result in very interesting products. So I do think on Yuan, check out the traditionally stored raw as well as the ripe. Cheers. Just totally different. And again, kind of going back into that range. I think this is a bad way to pick up on complexities of this tea in particular, because it's doing stuff with like texture. It kind of has this nice silky texture going on, but it's such a big contrast with the other tea that you're almost only able to pick up of the big broad strokes there. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in to this Inbetweenisode. Let me know how you liked it. Let me know if you learned something. Let me know what your experiences are with different storage of teas. Obviously, there's a huge spectrum of different storages. It's not all like this, but I thought this comparison would be good because it's such an obvious one, and will show you that traditional storage, there's, natural storage is really nothing quite like it. So even though Malaysia is a pretty humid place, Seattle obviously a little bit less so, these products are just going to be very, very different in the end. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.